same pattern. Tiki Barber and Brian Dawkins level.
That ball went out of here off the top of the wall. Chipper Jones just won the ball game.
We got 30 minutes for the rest of our life. 30 minutes.
Electrifies the crowd and is the beginning of a new order here in the NBA.
Hey, welcome back. It's a Hometown Hero podcast brought to you by Lockett Law. Know before you blow. Dan Hick and Denny Thompson. Denny, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Dan.
Yeah. You want to introduce our guest today?
Sure.
All right.
Sure is like a legend here.
He is.
He's like one of the most popular players during the golden year.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yes.
Maybe 4 of Jag football.
4 years.
Yeah, because now you got to count 95.
Oh, well, I count 96, 97, 98, 99.
Okay.
That's
all right.
4 years.
All right, there you go. Then we'll say 5 because you got to count 95. Everybody
95 was fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't matter the record of 95.
But perhaps the most popular kicker in the league at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. Mike Hollis. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
That was a pretty good intro.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fabulous intro. Yeah.
Calls you the most popular kicker in the league?
Well, he's definitely the most popular kicker in Jacksonville.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, no one really knew about the Jaguars back then. Like, who's this franchise team? What the heck, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't know if I had that popularity because I wasn't, the Jaguars are brand new and nobody really knew about us.
They said, who's this kicker too?
Yeah,
Who's this guy?
I mean, he was the only one scoring points for us.
You know who he beat out for the job, right? Way back when?
Georgia Tech guy, right?
Yeah, Scott Sisson.
Yes, there you go. Who was drafted, right?
Yeah, right?
The Patriots.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He was drafted to the Patriots in, I think, like 93 or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And your story is great. Tell us a little bit about, Mike went to, I believe, Idaho College.
The Vandals.
If I'm not mistaken. And, hitchhiked across America and found his way to Jacksonville, and the rest is history. Right, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I don't know where that hitchhiking story came from, but it's pretty cool.
It gets better with the years. Just roll with it.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be just the distance. Like, why in the world would I come all the way from Washington State to Florida and play football?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because I had an opportunity, right?
Right.
Yeah, of course. It was a great opportunity. I was with the Chargers in '94 in preseason, and John Carney was a kicker then. And, he was, 4 or 5 years in the league at that time anyway. So I admired him just because he was a veteran. And, and then, when I came in there, I was just a camp leg. It was an opportunity for me to get in. And it's funny because Bobby Beathard, the general manager, pulled me in after a workout and said, we really like you. We think you're really good. We want to sign you, but we don't have any money. And I was like, and I don't care. Sign me. I could care less. I know it's going to be a camp leg, so no big deal. But what he meant was he didn't have any money for like signing bonus. And I'm like, afterwards he told me that. I'm like, oh, well, that's irrelevant too. It's like I didn't have any leverage. I'm just a first year kicker, a rookie kicker essentially at that point. And came in and competed really well against John. And they told me a year later, because they invited me to come back to San Diego. And that was the whole story. But with Jacksonville, I had an opportunity to go back to the Chargers again. Now, mind you, John Carney had gone to the Pro Bowl that year.
Right.
And if John was on this interview, you'd say that I pushed him so well that I made him a better
There you
kicker.
go. Now you're talking.
He's a good dude. He would tell you that. And I essentially, after I got released from the Chargers and went back to school, and another long story short, I was invited. Well, I was told by Bobby Beathard and my agent at the time that the World League was picking up again at that time, and I was going to get drafted. Okay, so they said don't enroll in school again because you're going to get drafted. We're going to put you in the World League draft, and you're going to get picked up. And that draft came and went, and I did not get drafted. So I was like, okay, great, wonderful. But it gave me an opportunity to work out for some teams that came through Idaho, and we're looking at some other players. And I just happened to be at the other end of the field kicking, which is exactly what happened to Jaguars, because my buddy Eddie Howard, who was a punter from Idaho, who played at Idaho, he told me the Jaguars are coming in to look at him. And I said, okay, great. I'm going to be on the other end of the field kicking while you're working out. And as soon as he was done with his workout, I went over and introduced myself to the scout, which was Rick Mueller.
Ah.
And right? And got an opportunity to tell him who I was, and he said, "Yeah, I noticed you. I heard your kicks," is what he said. And, that's good because it means I was kicking the ball real well. But ultimately, that fast forward, I had an opportunity, obviously, with Jacksonville, but the San Diego Chargers wanted me to come back, and I was like, "Well, hey, can you give me a couple weeks because the Jaguars have expressed an interest, and that's definitely a better opportunity for me." Not thinking that Scott was any worse than John Carney.
Sure.
John had just gone to the Pro Bowl, and it was just a better opportunity for me, clearly. And luckily they gave me the time, and Jaguars were kind of dragging their feet a little bit. And I had told my family on a Sunday night that on Monday morning that I'm going to call it the Chargers and say, I'll come back and I'll sign with the Chargers again because the Jaguars aren't giving me any answers. That Monday morning, the sign from God is just crazy, That Monday morning, I get a call from the Jaguars saying, "We want to fly you in, and Tom Coughlin wants to see you kick firsthand in person," because I already worked out for Rick Mueller in Washington State after that, or prior to that. So they flew me in and signed me. So the rest is history.
We started this Hometown Heroes thing with Tom Coughlin. So we did a 2-part show with him. And it's interesting how many stories are like that from that first team, because the Mark Brunell story is similar.
It's like handpicked every guy,
Right. Like, wasn't necessarily looking for the guy, somehow found him, ended up signing him, that type of thing. I mean, with Brunell, I think traded for him, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just talk about the collection of guys that were on those original Jag teams and how really it was just a collection of kind of misfits, right? I mean, for the most part. And, I remember from back in the days of, Brant Boyer and guys like that being around. Just a fun group of guys, though, right?
Absolutely. And it's a great question because that's really what I like to share with people. When they ask the question, why were you guys so good back in the day? And that's the number one thing I come up with. The first thing I say is like, you know what? Tom Coughlin was extremely good at finding team players. He looked for the humble guy that wants to win, for his team, not the selfish guy that's, the greatest athlete. He found guys that were good athletes, great athletes, not the best maybe, but good enough. But more so, I think he's looking at the heart. He wanted to find guys that were in it to win and in it, to compete, in it to, be accountable to their teammates and humble guys. And that's what we had. We had a locker room full of really, really outstanding guys that were very humble and very, team oriented. And Tom was real strict. And that was one of the things we had some team, player only team meetings after, Tom would leave the team, the official team meeting. A guy like Jeff Loggeman would kind of line this up. He'd say, Jeff would talk to Tom and say, "Hey, Tom, after our team meeting, we're going to, you guys, all the coaches leave. We're going to have a little, players only team meeting." And Tom was all about that. He wanted that. He wanted that kind of team meeting. Now, he didn't know what we talked about, but he definitely liked that.
We hate that guy.
It showed leadership, and it showed that it wasn't that bad. It was more like, the guy, hey guys, we all understand he's tough and he's disciplined and he's not going to, some of the stuff is crazy. I get that, but guys, you can't be going out on Friday night, partying on a Friday night, showing up, walk through on Saturday morning, hungover, smelling like alcohol, and stuff like that. It wasn't like we always did it or guys always did it, but we held accountability meetings essentially, and guys like Jeff Loggeman and Joel Schmingy and even throw Baselli and throw Brunell in that mix. Or team leaders. There were those guys that put it straight to the guys. Hey, listen, Tom's the coach. He's going to call the shots, but you know what? Let's win games for us. Think about us as a team. Mm-hmm. He's the boss. He's going to make the decisions and they call the plays, this and that. But let's just win for us, and we did. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons why we were so successful so early.
What is it about Jacksonville and kickers? Like, is there something that we're missing about airflow in the stadium? Is there, because when you look at the history of the Jacksonville Jaguars,
that's where we shine.
That is. It's been the consistent. Yeah. You go from Hollis to Scobie to now Lambeau.
Yeah.
Mike, you were like the most accurate field goal kicker in the history of the NFL at one time, right? And then I think Scobie had that as well at one time. Lambeau has not missed in I don't know when.
I don't know if he's ever missed at home or whatever. He's had some incredible streak. You all have been it's great, but it frustrates me, Hollis, and I say this with all due respect, and I've told this to all you great kickers. I don't want you to be the most popular player on our team. I don't want you to be the best player on our team, because that usually means, no disrespect again, our team sucks.
Right. Yeah. but seriously, what is there something about kicking in Jacksonville, or is it just a really good run of kickers that the Jags have had?
I think it's a little bit of both of that. I think, kicking in Florida is good. It's good for a kicker to be, in warmer temperatures, the humid air, you're more flexible, you're fluid. The ball does travel more in warmer climates. So there's that part of it, but we just, I think that, drafting Scobie out of college, back in whatever 2002 or 3, I think it was 2003. Obviously Scobie did very well. And then, we had a little bit of a hiccup. Actually, we had a hiccup before Scobie. The year I was in Buffalo, I think the Jaguars went through 4 kickers.
Yeah.
Was I laughing a little bit under my breath?
That's fair.
I'm kidding. It was tough to see that, but, and then after Scobie left, and then with Jason Myers, people don't think that, Jason Myers was a good kicker.
Yeah.
Clearly, after he left here, he went to the Pro Bowl and all that with the Jets and all that. Now he's with the Seahawks. Jason was a good kicker. I think he struggled mentally with his extra points, and I think that was his demise here in Jacksonville. But once he got over that little hump with that whole new rule with the extra point, which I think is a pretty legit rule, fact that the mindset, I think, is really where guys struggled. They kicked the extra points early on when they made that rule change. They kicked them very carefully, not to miss, because they didn't want a stat that said they missed an extra point. So they kicked it carefully. But if they went on to kick a 33-yard field goal in the middle of the game, no problem. Yeah, I got this, no problem. But when they're kicking an extra point from 33 yards,
got in their heads.
A little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, Hollis,
all about the stat book.
What I saw you kick. How long was that kick you made in the preseason in St. Louis?
59.
I saw Hollis make a 59-yarder. But I'm curious, in your entire career, what is your favorite kick that you ever made? What is your favorite field goal?
Well, that 59-yarder was kind of a mental, game changer for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had missed 2 field goals prior to that. It was my second training camp with the Chargers. It was in, the middle of training camp, middle of preseason. Mm-hmm. And if I missed that kick, I don't even know if I would have stayed with the Jaguars. That would have been 3 in a row for me, and that was kind of a make or break kick for me.
Wow.
So that one there is very special in that
sure.
Not only because it was my longest. You won't see it on stat books because it's in preseason, but
right.
That was officially my longest ever, in a game. So that, for that reason, that was one of my favorites. Plus, obviously, it was that game changer of thinking, well, now if I can make this, and I made it, and that was just a confidence booster for me. Mm-hmm. And then that season, '96, I think I was 30 of 36 on field goals that year. So I had a really good year that year. And that one in the Buffalo one, the 45-yarder that hit up the upright,
sure,
and bounced through. That was just kind of a momentum, thing, and it was a game winner, of course, with minute and 20 or something left in the game. But that really was the run that was the beginning of our playoff run, obviously with winning that game and then going into Denver. And speaking of the game you were referring to earlier, that was that game in Denver. Yeah. We knocked off the Broncos
30-27, both games, if I'm not mistaken, with the final score in Hollis. Yeah, that was a fun ride, man. It was great being there in Buffalo, and that it was we were. The locker room was tight, and it was all, it was cold. And then, television-wise, the cameras were fogging up, and it's great stuff. But Hollis making that kick was great stuff, man.
That whole year, that whole year will never be replicated.
You can't beat it. The only, Mike, and I'll get your comment. The only part that we took it for granted a little bit too much.
Oh, no doubt.
We didn't enjoy the ride as much as we should have, not knowing, because we were so new and it was so new to us. This ain't that hard.
Well, but even the circumstances around it. I remember the Seattle Sunday night game, the Morgan Anderson missed kick.
Yeah.
And then, like Mike said, hitting one off the upright to go in against Buffalo, and then the Denver game, and then what they came home to in Denver.
Yeah,
all of that, that's made for TV stuff right there. Mm-hmm. Like you couldn't script it any better than that. Yeah. How much fun was that to be in the middle of that?
Oh, it was amazing, and people love to hear those stories, of us flying over the stadium and looking out the window and you could literally see all 40,000 or however many people were in the stadium. That did 20,000, whatever it was, but it was a lot of people. You could see them. You could see their arms kind of just reaching the roof kind of thing. And it was awesome for us to look down and see that. And then you get down on the ground, and then you see all the people alongside the roads with their signs. This is like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. It was insane. There's hundreds and thousands of people out there.
Well, to Dan's point, did you think at that point, hey, man, this is kind of easy? Like, to Dan's point, like, as fans, we were like, okay. Because at that time, Miami, Florida State, Florida all winning.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, okay, well, we got Jacksonville. We got the Jags. Now they're winning. What was the thought process in a young player?
Young team.
Yeah. Was it like, oh, well, we can do this every year?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, not really, not in my sense. I'm obviously as a kicker, you treat every game as a new game, and everyone really should, any player on the team. But as a kicker, you're starting over every week. You're starting over, so you can't look in last week and see how great you did last week and carry that into this week. You got to forget about last week, whether it was good or bad, and then focus on a brand new week this week. Every game we played towards the end of that season, and then clearly in the playoffs, we were always underdogs. We were never expected to win.
You know what the underlying, and we've done these Hometown Hero podcasts. Mike Hollis is our guest, brought to you by Lockett Law. Know before you blow. But there's an underlying current, Denny and Mike, with all you guys that we bring on, and there's at every level. They all faced adversity, but there's some characteristic in all these guys who, have been able to overcome and achieve their dream. Mike, I'm curious, where did that come from with you?
Just the fact that I was under an underdog. I was a short guy, and I had to prove myself to everybody. Even Tom Coughlin.
Sure.
That's why I had to work out for those guys twice, the Jaguars twice. Rick Mueller. We met Rick. We actually basically had to talk him into working me out the first time.
Right.
So I drove with Jim, my coach, Jim Gaetano, and I drove, and then we were from Spokane, of course, both grew up there. We drove from Spokane to Tri-Cities areas, right in the middle of Washington State, and Rick Mueller was in Seattle, so we drove from Seattle. So we met halfway. Really good workout there. And even that wasn't enough to convince them to even, bring me in for whatever. But then, fast forward about a month, and that's when, they'd gone through all the other guys that they thought were good enough, and bigger guys, of course, because that's what Tom wanted.
Right.
And then when they said, Mike, he's a good guy. You might want to, they finally convinced Tom to say, let's bring the guy in and look at him. And they flew me in. I was the only guy they flew in, which that, as a kicker, and when you're going to workouts, that's a good sign, because that means that they just want to see you and only you. They don't want to see anybody else, and they don't really care if you're competing against anybody. They just want to see how you kick. And I knew that. It kind of puts a little pressure on you a little bit, but I knew that hey, they're only flying me, and that's a good sign. Well, I had a really good workout then, of course, and that's when they signed me. But Tom Coughlin, he thought I was too short. They wanted to look for a bigger kicker because they felt like a bigger kicker would be better. And I'm like, why in the world does it matter? I kick like I'm 6'4". Why would it matter that I'm 5'8"?
You know what I appreciate about Mike, and we could go on and on and on, because Mike and I have a very long and fun history.
Tell us more.
No, that's a different podcast. Well, quick, Mike actually was the one that threw my bachelor party.
Wow.
Yeah, people may not know that.
What happened at the bachelor party?
Mason was actually our ring bearer. So, no, great. Well, again, different podcast. But the thing that I've
maybe have him on the sports den and talk about that.
Yeah, I think we've actually done that. But the thing I've always appreciated about Mike is he mentioned his coach, Jim, who was Tom Selleck's stunt double, or was back in the day. I don't know about now. I haven't seen him in a while. They are so behind the science of kicking,
right,
that they're still doing this. Like, Mike is still going around the country training like some of the top kickers in the country now. So when Mike's telling the story about size and all that kind of stuff, like, Mike got by on knowing the science behind it. And in a lot of ways, like, you weren't a traditional kicker mechanically, but it's become more to what you were doing back then these days, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that, the classic example is you think about golf. Golf has been around a million years, and, 50 years ago, golfers were swinging the club a certain way. All of them weren't, right? Well, they've kind of evolved, and there's so many golfers out there. The market range is from, 2 years old to 102 years old, male, female. There's such a wide variety of golfers out there, and they all want to be the best golfer, right? So there's a certain technique that has evolved to be the best technique. Kicking is way beyond behind that. It's so far behind that we're not even close yet. But that's what we're trying to do is implement this proper way of kicking. And I'm very biased. I'm very prideful of the way we coach and what we coach.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, the things that we teach are the best way to kick a football. There's no other way to kick the best that you, whatever your athletic ability is, whatever your size is, no matter how strong you are, how fast you are, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can reach the highest potential that you specifically can get to using the stuff we teach. No other way will do it for you.
I could kick it from 20, Mike.
I can't.
Straight on, though. Straight on guy.
We tried. Mike actually trained me for a contest that I got my name drawn for $25,000.
Yes.
I was terrible.
Are you going to share that story?
How far did you have to make it?
It was 25 yards.
Wait, 25-yard kick, you get $20,000?
Yeah, I wasn't even close.
You couldn't hit it?
No, I wasn't even close. It wasn't even.
Damn it, man! Did you try soccer style or straight on?
I don't know what I tried.
You got to punch it. Just punch it up there.
I kind of made it in between. It was kind of like I told him to do soccer style. I showed him the things to do, and then when he kicked it, he kind of did it in between soccer style toe punch.
I am to kicking what my man Mike is to golf.
Did you hold in high school?
Mike could talk about the golfing like stuff. The kicking did not translate to Hollis's golf game.
Hey, Mike, before we let you run, I got to ask you one more thing. You said, you know, a little chip on your shoulder about the height and stuff, but you were a thick guy. But I'm just curious. You played in the NFL for 7 years, 8 years. Surely there's one time where you got your ass knocked out on a kickoff.
You already know this one.
I do?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Tell me.
Well,
maybe the listener done.
What are you talking about?
You're going to tell me you brought Herschel Walker down gracefully?
Well, I didn't get knocked out when I brought him down. I grabbed one of his huge thighs and I held on for dear life.
No, I want to know one where you got maybe knocked into another row, or where you maybe didn't know where you were, or was there any one of those that ever occurred?
Well, Mel Gray gave me a nice thigh to my head one time.
Okay.
That hurt. I saw stars on that one.
But there was nothing like a Brian Moorman moment.
Oh, no, that's the best. That and his buddy Barker with the broken nose on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
That was a beauty.
Yeah.
That was
But the Herschel Walker left some rug burns, right?
Yeah, I got a scar on my forearm to prove it. I should get it tattooed, HW or something.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's a solid idea.
Hey, we could talk to you all day, man. That's great stuff, and we appreciate you being part of our Hometown Heroes podcast brought to you by Lockett Law, Know Before You Blow. He's Mike Hollis, and he's got some good stories, huh?
Yeah, we definitely could do like a 2-hour deal with this thing. Yeah.
Plenty more, absolutely. We didn't even touch any of them.
No. Maybe that, you know what? Mike, let's just do that. We'll line that up. Me, you, and Big Game James.
You got to get them in.
Uncensored,
uncensored.
We'll do that.
Here we go.
All right, Mikey, appreciate it, buddy.
All right, guys, take care.
All right, there he goes, Mike Hollis. This has been the Hometown Heroes podcast. Dan Hick and Denny Thompson. And thank you to Lockett Law, Know Before You Blow. Denny, we'll talk to you next week.
All righty.